Millions of Americans are working full-time and still can't afford groceries. That's not a prediction that's happening right now. In 2026, the U.S. job market isn't just slowing down, it's imploding. Openings have collapsed by over 30% in just 12 months. Underemployment is at a 20-year high. And job seekers? They're applying to hundreds of listings that don't even exist. Big tech is replacing managers with AI. Small towns are becoming employment graveyards. And the worst part? The government keeps pretending everything is fine. Well, it's not. This isn't a soft landing. This is a slow-motion crash, and most Americans are going to feel it too late. Mass remote layoffs are quietly gutting white-collar America. The white-collar collapse that's happening quietly behind closed laptops. Forget what you think you know about job losses in factories or warehouses. The real bloodbath in 2026 is unfolding in tech, finance, marketing, law, consulting roles that were once considered safe for the college-educated middle and upper middle class. According to layoffs.fyi, over 240,000 tech jobs were slashed in 2023. But here's the problem. That pace hasn't slowed down. It's just gone underground. Firms are now conducting silent layoffs, shrinking teams through attrition, hiring freezes, and performance-based terminations that never make headlines. Salesforce, Google, Meta, Amazon, all of them are trimming without fanfare. The corporate strategy now is do more with less, and that means you're expected to cover two roles until you burn out. Oh, and get this, remote workers are the first to go. A 2024 survey by Beautiful.ai found that 64% of managers are more likely to cut remote staff first, regardless of performance. Why? Because they're easier to detach from, they're out of sight, and there's no messy in-office morale dip when you fire someone working from a living room in Tulsa. If you're a remote worker who took a pay cut to live in a cheaper city and thought you'd found stability, think again. This is a white-collar recession cloaked in spreadsheets and sanitized HR language. And here's the most chilling part. There's no bounce-back trend on the horizon. Job listings for six-figure remote roles have dropped by over 65% since Q1 2023, according to LinkedIn's internal analytics. We are watching a professional class get hollowed out in real time, and no one is talking about it. If you're in a knowledge job right now, you should be deeply, deeply worried because the quiet part is being said loudly in boardrooms. You're expendable. AI isn't coming for jobs. It's already replacing managers. We need to talk about AI-driven job displacement, but not in the way the media has been framing it. This isn't about factory robots replacing line workers. That already happened years ago. What we're seeing now as we enter 2026 is AI creeping into the decision-making layer, the strategic tier. It's replacing mid-level managers. Goldman Sachs warned in 2023 that up to 300 million jobs globally could be impacted by generative AI, but what they didn't fully explain is which layer of the workforce is most at risk right now. And the answer? Operations managers, marketing directors, HR analysts, financial planners. In other words, the very people who used to be protected by their strategic thinking. Tools like ChatGPT, Enterprise, AutoGPT, and Salesforce Einstein are already making budget decisions, running hiring simulations, and optimizing workflows that used to require 5 humans in a meeting room and a week of back and forth. A December 2025 McKinsey update found that 37% of companies using enterprise-level AI have already eliminated at least one management layer as a result. That's not hypothetical. That's not in the future. That's this year. And once those jobs go away, they don't come back. AI doesn't need a bonus, healthcare, or days off. And for every C-suite executive that can eliminate a layer of $150,000 salaries, that's a win for them. The trickle-down effect? You don't just lose managers. You lose mentorship, team structure, internal promotion paths. The ladder itself vanishes. Young employees now report that they don't even know who their real boss is. Is it the software? Is it the person who checks Slack once a week? And let's be clear, This isn't just tech companies, it's banks, hospitals, universities. If you're in a decision-making role that relies on pulling reports, analyzing trends, and giving recommendations, you're already being tested against a bot. And guess what? The bot doesn't get tired. If 2025 was the year of AI adoption, 2026 is the year of AI replacement. Small towns are turning into employment dead zones. The collapse of employment in small-town America. This isn't getting enough coverage, but the data coming in from Q4 2025 shows an accelerating trend. Entire counties are becoming job deserts. And we're not just talking rural farmlands here. We're talking about mid-sized towns in Ohio, Michigan, Arkansas, Nevada, places that used to have at least one reliable employer. A plant, a warehouse, a distribution hub, a hospital. But that model is collapsing. The reason? Consolidation, automation, remote operations. Walmart, for instance, closed over 20 underperforming stores in 2024, most in rural or suburban zones. Hospitals are merging and shutting down smaller facilities to centralize care in cities. Even Amazon is pulling back fulfillment centers and turning toward AI-run megacenters in urban hubs. And the result? Tens of thousands of people living in areas where there are literally no jobs left to apply to. The 2025 Economic Innovation Group report showed that over 43% of counties in the U.S. had fewer business establishments in 2024 than they did in 2014. That's a decade of decay, and it's picking up speed. What's worse? When jobs disappear from these regions, people can't just move to the city. Housing prices are out of reach. Rent in cities like Austin, Denver, and Nashville has tripled since 2019, and wages haven't kept up. So people stay. But there's nothing left. Just gig work, maybe a part-time cashier job if you're lucky. These areas are turning into economic dead zones, and policymakers are not prepared for what happens when half the map becomes functionally unemployable. The infrastructure isn't there. The social services aren't ready, and the next generation, they're either leaving or giving up entirely. We are watching the silent erasure of small-town opportunity, and the scariest part is how little anyone is doing to stop it. Retirements aren't opening jobs anymore. They're killing entire departments. The wave of boomer retirements that was supposed to open up millions of job opportunities is doing the exact opposite. Everyone thought the so-called silver tsunami would finally unlock upward mobility for millennials and Gen Z, but instead, in 2026, what we're seeing is something darker. When veteran employees retire now, companies aren't backfilling those positions. They're eliminating entire departments. And the result? Younger workers are either left with impossible workloads or no advancement path at all. A November 2025 analysis by the AARP found that over 57% of workers aged 64 plus are now retiring earlier than expected, not because they're comfortable, but because the post-COVID workplace inflation and tech changes are overwhelming them. But here's where the spiral kicks in. Once they leave, organizations aren't replacing them. A joint study by Deloitte and CHRM in late 2025 found that 41% of corporate HR departments now treat retirements as restructuring opportunities, which is a polite way of saying they seize the chance to cut costs. And when leadership roles are vacated, mid-level talent isn't promoted. Instead, responsibilities are either distributed downward or automated away. So instead of generational renewal, what we get is career stagnation. You might be working under a manager who's covering 3 jobs with zero bandwidth to mentor you or advocate for raises. Worse, institutional knowledge is walking out the door with these retirees. Critical systems, vendor relationships, legal compliance, all that knowledge is evaporating, and in many cases, it's not being documented or transferred. The consequences? Mistakes, inefficiencies, and yes, more layoffs to streamline functions that no one knows how to run anymore. The narrative that retirements would free up space for younger generations was a lie. What it really did was expose just how dependent corporations had become on longtime staff and how willing they were to use their exits as an excuse to cut labor spending. The job openings we were promised just aren't materializing. They're vanishing with the people who built the modern workplace. And for the rest of us, we're expected to do more with less while waiting for a promotion that's never coming. The rise of fake jobs is wasting everyone's time. Let's talk about something absolutely maddening: the explosion of fake job postings across every major hiring platform. You've probably noticed it yourself. The endless scrolling, the perfect-sounding listings that never call back, the automated rejections within hours. But this isn't just a job seeker's complaint, it's a systemic issue in 2026. A recent audit by MIT's Sloan School of Management found that nearly 45% of all job listings on LinkedIn, Indeed, and ZipRecruiter are either outdated, misleading, or not tied to actual open positions. Let that sink in. Almost half. And it's not just shady companies doing it. Fortune 500 firms are among the worst offenders. Why? Because keeping listings active makes them look like they're growing. It helps with investor confidence, gives them leverage in wage negotiations, and lets them build a pipeline of desperate applicants for when budget approval finally comes, if it ever does. But that pipeline? It's a trap. People are spending weeks tailoring resumes, writing cover letters, prepping for interviews that lead nowhere. We're in a national gaslighting campaign where corporations pretend to be hiring while quietly downsizing. And don't think AI isn't part of this mess. Most applications are screened by bots before a human ever sees them. Applicant tracking systems, ATS, filter out up to 75% of resumes based on arbitrary keyword matches, even when candidates are qualified. So you're not just applying to fake jobs, you're being ghosted by machines. Worse, some companies are harvesting applicant data to train AI models or benchmark salary expectations. You're not a candidate, you're input. The labor market in 2026 isn't just collapsing, it's becoming a simulation. And for job seekers, the psychological toll is real. Burnout, anxiety, imposter syndrome. A Glassdoor report from December 2025 found that 68% of unemployed Americans believe job listings are fake or deceptive, and they're right. So if you've been applying to dozens of positions with no response, it's not because you're unqualified, it's because the market itself is lying. We have to stop pretending this is a healthy system. It's broken. And in many ways, it's been weaponized against the very people who need work the most. Middle management is getting crushed from both sides. If you're stuck in middle management in 2026, you are now officially in the most unstable job position in the American economy. That's not an exaggeration, it's the result of two converging forces that are squeezing the life out of this entire employment tier. On one side, you've got executives demanding extreme productivity, slashing budgets, and implementing AI tools that reduce headcount. On the other, a burned-out, demoralized workforce that resents every layer between them and the C-suite. Middle managers are now expected to do more with less staff, less time, less clarity. A Gallup survey from January 2026 found that 72% of managers say their job frequently feels unmanageable, up from 58% just a year earlier. That's a catastrophic jump. What used to be a stable stepping stone to leadership is now a pressure cooker with no exit. You're too senior to be safe from cuts, too junior to make strategic decisions. And the kicker, you're the one everyone blames when things go wrong. But it gets worse. Companies are now quietly testing AI-powered project managers, especially in logistics, operations, and finance. These tools are replacing dashboards, weekly check-ins, even performance reviews. And when your job can be done by a dashboard, guess what? You're not a person, you're overhead. Already in Q4 2025, Meta and Salesforce both announced flattening initiatives, eliminating hundreds of middle manager roles, and more are following. This isn't just restructuring, it's a full-scale collapse of the corporate middle class. The result is chaos on the ground, employees with no direction, projects with no leadership, teams siloed and drowning. And let's be honest, middle managers used to be the glue. They knew how to handle conflict, push back on unreasonable demands, advocate for talent. Now, they're either silent, broken, or gone. This layer of the workforce is being hollowed out like never before. And without it, the entire idea of career progression in corporate America starts to rot from the inside out. The freelance economy is collapsing under its own weight. You know how they sold us the dream that gig work is the future? That you could be your own boss, set your own hours, work from anywhere, all while making bank? Well, in 2026, that dream is officially dead and it's dragging down millions of American workers with it. The freelance economy, once hailed as the solution to rigid 9-to-5 jobs, is now a race to the bottom, with oversaturation, vanishing contracts, and platforms slashing rates left and right. Fiverr, Upwork, Freelancer.com, they're flooded with global competition and artificial intelligence offering similar services for pennies. And clients know it. A 2025 report from MBO Partners showed that over 68% of full-time freelancers in the U.S. reported earning less than $25,000 per year, up from 52% just 3 years ago. That's not a wage, that's poverty disguised as flexibility. And let's not forget, freelancers don't get health insurance, unemployment, paid leave, or retirement benefits. They're on their own. What's even more sinister is how companies now use freelance and contractor as legal shields, offloading full-time responsibilities to avoid labor laws. Thousands of writers, marketers, engineers, and designers are working 40-hour weeks, full-time hours, for a single employer, but legally they're independent contractors. So when the company decides to cut them loose, no severance, no recourse, just a thank you email and a locked Slack account, and AI is making it worse. Generative tools are undercutting copywriters. Automated tools are replacing virtual assistants. Even coders are being squeezed by AI systems that write and debug software at a fraction of the time and cost. It's no longer about quality, it's about cost, and humans can't compete on that front. The result? Millions of Americans who thought they were future-proof because they could work for themselves are now trapped in a collapsing economy with no floor. There's no unemployment safety net for gig workers. There's no collective bargaining. There's no HR department to call when you're exploited. This isn't flexibility, it's exploitation at scale. And in 2026, the so-called freelance revolution has become just another battlefield in the war on American labor. Wages are rising, but only because no one can afford to live. Let's clear up one of the most deceptive headlines floating around right now. Wages are rising. Sure, technically they are, but what no one's telling you is why. It's not because of a strong labor market or worker leverage. It's because living costs are so out of control, companies are being forced to raise wages just to keep anyone at all. In 2025, the median asking wage, what workers said they needed to accept a new job, rose to $81,822, according to the New York Fed. Sounds good, right? Not when you compare that to inflation. Rent in most U.S. cities is now consuming 45 to 60% of take-home pay, up from the traditional 30% rule that economists use to recommend. Health insurance deductibles have doubled since 2020. Groceries are up 23% since mid-2022, with essentials like eggs, milk, and bread rising even faster. And gas? Welcome back to $5.50 a gallon in coastal states. So yeah, wages are technically going up, but the average American has less spending power today than they did 5 years ago. Real wages are flat or declining when you factor in the cost of housing, healthcare, education, and childcare. So what are companies doing? They're offering fake bonuses, inflation-adjusted stipends, and temporary raises, just enough to keep you working, but not enough to build a life. And the kicker? Most of these wage gains are concentrated in high burnout industries, nursing, warehousing, trucking, where turnover is so extreme that companies are desperate to fill slots. It's hazard pay, not prosperity. And for office workers, the story's worse. Wage growth in tech, finance, and media has actually slowed, and many roles have seen outright cuts disguised as geographic adjustments or remote differentials. That's code for, you move to a cheaper state? Great, we're cutting your pay. This isn't wage growth, it's wage survival. And it's the clearest sign yet that the labor market isn't evolving, it's collapsing under inflation, and wages are simply trying to keep pace with an economy that no longer works for the average person. Mass underemployment is the new normal, and no one's admitting it. Let's talk about a labor market lie so massive it's warping the national conversation. The unemployment rate is not telling us the truth. You've heard it before, 4.6%. Not so bad, right? But that number is masking something far worse. Massive underemployment, which is absolutely out of control in 2026. What does that mean? It means people technically have jobs, but they're working 10 hours a week at Starbucks, driving Uber at night, or picking up temp gigs with no benefits just to scrape by. And these people aren't counted as unemployed. That's how the government keeps the numbers pretty. But in reality, the U.S. labor force is being hollowed out. A 2025 report by the Ludwig Institute showed that over 32 million Americans are underemployed, working part-time, involuntarily, or stuck in jobs far below their skill level. That's 1 in every 5 workers. And the worst part? Most of them have degrees. Student loan debt is back on the books. Payments resumed in late 2023, and now we've got millions of overqualified people working entry-level retail just to avoid default. These aren't people who lack ambition. They lack options. And it's not just young people anymore. Gen X and even late boomers are falling into underemployment because full-time roles with benefits are vanishing. Companies are slicing roles into project-based contracts, giving you 90 days of work with no guarantee of renewal. It's impossible to build a life like that. It's unstable, unsustainable, and psychologically brutal. And yet, you won't hear a single politician talking about this crisis in honest terms. Why? Because underemployment doesn't make headlines. It doesn't spark panic like recession or crash. But make no mistake, this is the real American labor collapse. And in 2026, it's not just a blip. It's the new default. We are training college grads to accept $17 per hour jobs with no benefits. We are forcing parents to patch together 3 part-time schedules just to afford school lunches. This isn't progress. It's collapse in slow motion. And no one in power seems willing to fix it. The American work contract is dead. And now we've reached the core of the issue, the ultimate reason why 2026 will be remembered as the year the U.S. labor market officially broke. The American work contract is dead. The unspoken deal that held this country together for decades, work hard, get rewarded, build a life, has completely collapsed. Companies no longer see employees as investments. They see them as liabilities. Everything has been financialized. Everything is about margin. And that means every single job, from warehouse pickers to software engineers, is now on the chopping block the moment the quarterly report disappoints. There's no more loyalty. Not from companies. Not from workers. And why should there be? Layoffs now happen via email, sometimes without warning or severance, and entire departments are gone before lunch. The idea of a career has been replaced with earning periods. You're useful for a while, then you're not. Rinse, repeat. And the benefits? Those are gone too. Pensions are extinct. Health insurance is a nightmare of co-pays, deductibles, and unaffordable premiums. Parental leave is a luxury. Time off? Monitored, tracked, and questioned. We've created a labor environment where burnout is the default, and anyone who dares to step away for rest risks being replaced. And now, in 2026, AI, offshoring, and automation are tightening the noose. Why hire a $90,000 analyst when a subscription to an LLM does 80% of the work? Why promote from within when you can hire a contractor for a third of the cost? And the scariest part? This is by design. Corporations lobbied for this flexibility. Wall Street rewards this behavior. And the government? It's too slow, too captured, or too indifferent to intervene. So here we are, an entire generation waking up to the realization that the system was never designed to help them succeed. The American job market in 2026 isn't broken. It's been redesigned to exploit, to extract, and to discard. And unless something drastic changes, we're not heading into a labor recovery. We're heading into a permanent labor dystopia where work no longer guarantees stability, dignity, or even survival. Welcome to the new normal.